So I don't talk about animation much on this channel, and I definitely should and I want to more, but if you guys didn't know, I'm approaching my 100th video next video, which is very exciting for me. I'm planning something fairly big, so for it, I decided to talk about the new Netflix animated film Nimona in a short and sweet fashion, because it's quite great and I wanted to do something small before I go for the big one. So this will be a non-spoiler talk. So if you didn't know, Nimona is a new animated film on Netflix starring Chloe Grace Moretz and Riz Ahmed, and it's based on a graphic novel from 2015. Originally this was going to be a Blue Sky animated film, but after the Disney acquisition of 21st Century Fox and therefore Blue Sky Animation Studios, this film was cancelled by Disney for reportedly the strong LGBTQ+ themes. Which is fucked up, especially considering one of their latest efforts, Strange World, features similar themes but in a much worse film. But luckily the project was picked up by Annapurna Pictures, who brought on Blue Sky veterans Nick Bruno and Troy Quane, who actually directed Blue Sky's last film, Spies in Disguise. So it realistically just feels like it kind of came full circle as a project in some way, and I'm glad that it did, because this film is hellishly unique. It has a huge blend of fantasy and sci-fi, which for genres that have such an audience crossover is rarely ever explored simultaneously. Which is understandable. At first they may seem like opposing ideologies. One is a very old-timey style with wizards, dragons, magic, swords, etc. and the other is futuristic with lasers and space and anti-gravity machines. But this film is an example of how a marriage between the two can be very visually intriguing and builds a world that actually feels like it has an interesting history. They even open up with a classic fairy tale storybook intro, which is used to keep you unprepared for the visual whiplash you're about to experience. It's small visual ideas such as that keep the audience interested, because it's constantly moving you out of your comfort zone. This film will present you with ideas just as you get used to them, pull the rug and then give you something weirder, grander. It has an intense energy that isn't to the likes of, say, Across the Spider-Verse, but it doesn't need to be. This movie is just trying to be a fun movie for children, and it's exactly that. There's a gorgeous animation style that isn't seen all too much in popular animation here, or even indie animation. It's a sort of cel-shaded technique that most closely resembles Nintendo games like Zelda Breath of the Wild or even The Wind Waker. Now, as are most animated films currently, there is some Spider-Verse influence, but it is very subtle and nowhere near on the level of, say, a Mitchells vs. the Machines or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Nimona definitely has its own animated language that it uses to emote every feeling on the spectrum and does each one very uniquely. But other than the animation and the background information, how are the characters? Well, Nimona herself could be madly annoying, but luckily avoids nearly every pothole in its way. I had a fear that she would have a lot of similarities with 22 from Pixar's Soul, who can be insufferable at times, but no. Nimona from start to end remains charming and a dynamic character. Chloe Grace Moretz gives a nice and warm performance, as does Riz Ahmed, who definitely gives the best performance as Ballister. He has a real sincerity to his vocal tone that a lot of actors are not able to translate from live action to animation quite as well. The rest of the cast is competent enough. I especially love the two guards who have the running joke about an otter, by far the best joke in the film, of which there are many. The script is incredibly witty and is switching up its humour every scene or so to stay fresh, and the emotional beats are just as present and mostly land as well. Though a bit heavy on the themes, it's a child's movie at the end of the day, and subtlety is cool but not all too necessary as long as it isn't punching you in the face like the aforementioned Strange World with its messages. There are huge Hunger Games parallels, which I'm not too sure are intentional or not. I would have to research that, but they are 100% present and I think make an interesting point of comparison for all of the characters involved. But overall, this is a really good and quite unique animated film. The story is fun, albeit a bit cliche, but it's difficult to expect much more since I'm not exactly the target audience for it. I'm sure it will work very well for your kids, and I think given the opportunity could very well be a modern animated classic in the vein of a Treasure Planet or Prince of Egypt. Not the obvious big names like Toy Story, but a fan favourite for the years to come. But that's just me. Have you seen Nimona? If so, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what you thought about this video. I read every single comment and reply to as many as possible. And whether it's this fantasy sci-fi blended piece of art or not, as always, keep watching movies.